Agora vamos ter o prazer de apresentar o painel ou o maior mercado da América Latina, ou o que se espera, como entrar e quais são as projeções para 5 anos. Vamos receber nossos panelistas. Luiz Felipe Maia, Founding Partner at FIMCA, Franco Yoshiyasu e Maia Advogados. Luiz Felipe Maia é um dos sócios fundadores e chefe da área de tecnologia e jogos da FIMCA Advogados. Maia tem um JD pela Universidade de São Paulo, especializado em Direito Empresarial com foco em contratos da Fundação Getúlio Vargas e um mestrado em Direito pela Universidade Federal de Pernambuco. É também um negociador e mediador experiente certificado pelo Programa de Negociação da Faculdade de Direito de Harvard. Ensina cursos de negociação na Escola de Negócios. É membro da International Association of Gaming Advisors, membro-geral do International Masters of Gaming Law e é o autor do capítulo brasileiro da Gaming Law Review do Chambers and Partners Gaming Law Practice Guide for Brazil. Hugo Baumgartner, COO at Caleta Gaming, RCT Gaming. Com mais de 25 anos na indústria do jogo, Hugo começou um negócio terrestre no Brasil com a RCT Gaming. Nos últimos 11 anos esteve no mercado Latam, com um escritório na Cidade do México. André Guelfi, Managing Partner Brasil at Betson Group. André Guelfi é o sócio-diretor-geral da Betson no Brasil. Possui mais de 15 anos de experiência na indústria internacional de apostas. Empreendedor, ingressou na Betson em dezembro de 2019 com uma aquisição da sua aposta. Primeira transação de MIA no mercado de aposta brasileiro. Entre as especialidades, destaque para o envolvimento de negócios, liderança, gestão, negociações e Corporate and Institutional Affairs. Dima Rederman, COO at BetoBet, ingressou nas fileiras da BetoBet da empresa-mãe Aspire Global, onde atuou como diretor de operações por mais de 2 anos. Ao longo da sua carreira, acumulou ampla experiência em liderança estratégica. É um forte conhecimento da indústria, desempenhando um papel integral no crescimento e sucesso da Aspire Global ao longo dos seus 7 anos no mandato. Sua experiência e liderança estão focadas no desenvolvimento e fortalecimento de serviços e soluções comerciais voltadas para a tecnologia, prestando um excelente serviço ao cliente e impulsionando o crescimento rentável da receita. Seu principal objetivo não é apenas garantir que a BetoBet se destaque com seu produto esportivo em novos mercados, mas também manter posições de liderança em mercados emergentes como a África e a América Latina. Maria Luísa Curban, FIMSA Advogados, advogada da área de Gaming e Tecnologia do FIMSA Advogados, formada em Direito e mestre em Direito Comercial Internacional, é ex-integrante do projeto Bingo, subsidiado pelo ESRC, Economy and Social Research Council, do Reino Unido.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank CGS Brazil for the invitation to mediate this conversation with us very skilled and experienced experts in the field. I truly appreciate getting their perspective on the Brazilian market and time out of their schedules for us. I will not take too long in my introduction because I'm certain they have a lot to say, but just to give our audience who might not be aware of the latest developments regarding the Brazilian political and legal landscape, that right now in 2021, we have proper reasons to believe that we are entering in a new area in gaming and gambling opportunities for the commercial sector. With sports betting that was legalized in 2018 as a lottery product, the issue is not more if, but how to regulate the practice. We have more extensive bills on gambling regulation in general in both houses of the National Congress that have been discussed for a considerable time, and have as well selective legislation specific industries like casinos. And additionally, we have the judiciary giving its contribution to regulation thanks to a paradigmatic decision achieved in the second half of 2020 that allowed states to run the same lottery products already authorized by the union and partner with private operators. So we have a number of possibilities, and it's unlikely that the market will remain the same. But how is this process going to unfold? I'm not giving you the answer, but rather asking it. So starting with one of the people who knows best about Brazilian gambling and gambling law, Luis Felipe Maia. So with 15 years of experiences in business and gambling and gaming in Brazil, what is your analysis of the current status of the Latin America giant? Are we somewhere close to having regulations that allow transparent and efficient operations for gaming operators and for the government?
Well, hi, Luisa. Thank you. Thank you, TGS, for the invitation. Thank you, Luisa, for the question. It's been quite a busy year, 2020, despite the pandemic. I would say 2020, 2021. We have, last year, the Supreme Court ruled that the states can operate lotteries and that it's not a monopoly for the union. The states cannot create new games, but they can operate the same games offered by the federal union. And as you know, sports betting was legalized in Brazil in 2018 as a lottery. So now every one of the 26 states plus the federal district can issue sports betting licenses. And the ruling was somewhat obscure in several issues. One of them, for instance, is whether the cities, the municipalities can also operate lotteries. And because of that obscurity, now we have some cities like Guarulhos, which is a very large city near São Paulo, also creating their own lotteries. We have more than 500 municipalities in Brazil. So in theory, we would end up with around 550 different lotteries operating in the country, which is kind of crazy, to be honest. It doesn't make much sense. But because of the obscurity of that ruling, now we are facing the situation. Also, sports betting is on the verge of being regulated. The federal government is working on this. There was an RFI, a request for information, in the beginning of 2021, issued by the National Development Bank, and they are about to issue an RFP to hire a consulting company, consulting experts, to assist them in drafting the regulation and also defining how the licensing model will be. And finally, we have 4 bills of law under discussion in the Congress regarding casinos, resort casinos, and other types of games like bingos and jogo do bicho. So the point is, we have done part of the work. The market, we have over 85% of the soccer teams in Brazil sponsored by betting companies. And I think now we will probably see licenses available next year for sports betting, provided that they are able to go on with this RFP process. And we also will have state level licenses that will have to live together with the federal licenses. And then we also have the casino front. The author of one of the bills, one of the most important bills, is Bill 186 from the Senate, is now a minister, a very important minister at the government. Okay, and what we call civil house here in Brazil. And we also expect that this being closer to the government will also make things move a little faster for this bill.
Thank you, Luis Felipe Maia, for your valuable insights as usual. We have lots of things to comment, but let's skip it to the second round. Right now, I'm going to go straight to our second question. One of the people who have been working for nothing less than 25 years with the gambling sector, and whose experience is of great help to all, Hugo. So with this 25 years of experience in the Brazilian market and a family business that was present since the beginning of the 90s, what is the natural evolution of the market in Brazil after these decades of openings, closings, and half measures? Do you believe very close to seeing this balanced and fair legislation ahead?
Luisa, thank you for the question. CGS, thank you for the invitation. It's a tough question. It's a very tough question. If we are moving to a really good legislation, I have been living, as my colleagues here, the Brazilian market for a while, and I passed for all kinds of situations and possible things. If you ask me if we are moving to a positive legislation, I think so. I mean, minds are changing. People are realizing that somehow we have to legalize gaming, sports betting, and all the verticals. It was really difficult in the past when I used to walk on the street and people point at me and say, so you work with gambling. And at that time, people just didn't understand that was a business just like other one. So to tell you the truth, I think that we are moving to a positive way. As Luis Felipe told, we have several different possibilities. I mean, now we have a lottery stuff, we have sports betting. So it's something that's real in Brazil right now. It's something that's going to happen. So we, as part of this industry, we have to contribute somehow to have fair and also good legislation for the country, where the country can have all the taxes, and we as providers, as operators or whatever, we also can work and invest with some clarity and some more trust in the market, because walking around and talking to people about Brazil, nobody has the belief that we're gonna have something positive in Brazil. But as a Brazilian, I do think now we are moving in a good way, and when it's gonna happen, I think that we don't know. But anyway, we are moving in a good way.
Thank you. I think you've said something that just really visible right now. Minds are changing, and I think hopefully you're in that direction, and things are going to get better. So our third question is going to be like now with Andre. So Andre from Betson Group, who has very precise knowledge of the market in general and of the waves and movements it goes through in a number of different jurisdictions, specifically in Brazil. So 15 years of experience in Brazil since its beginning in Coder. As the head of Betson, what is the analysis of the Brazilian market and the current movement that we're living? What is the analysis in relation to this increase in virtual gambling, especially even right now with this pandemic world, and betting in this yet to be, but hopefully close post-pandemic world?
Okay, Luisa. Well, thanks CGS for the invitation. Thanks for the panelists to be joining me. It's a pleasure to be sharing thoughts and analysis with you. As you well said, I mean, the market is developing, and it's consistent with what we always believed. I mean, that Brazil is a country with huge potential for gambling. What we've seen so far, specifically talking about iGaming and sports betting, which is, I think, the hot topic on the table amongst the verticals that Luis Felipe mentioned, the initiatives we have at the Congress level, regulatory level, and at state level. I think that the one that is more tangible and more advanced in terms of regulatory processes, the sports betting regulation. Not for our surprise, I mean, the market is demonstrating its optimism with the progress that the regulation is making so far, and we are seeing like impressive moves, bold moves from the segment to establish their brands, to develop their local strategies regarding sports betting. We've seen like this year, like impressive growth in the media investments the segment is doing in Brazil. And it's my view that we are coming to the point that the market is just too large to not to be ignored or to be postponed. I mean, this regulation should unfold very likely during next year. And I'm not the expert, and Luis Felipe probably can add some color into it, but I have the impression that they have a deadline to accomplish with, which is next year, according to the law that was approved in 2018. So, I personally, my forecast for next year is that the regulation should happen during 2022. Anyhow, I mean, having the licenses available 2022. Anyhow, we've seen the regulators mentioning that they're working to have the regulation ready and still this year. I think this is a bit of an aggressive appraisal of the whole situation, because we haven't seen the request for proposal yet in the market. So for them to contract and for that study to be ready, trimmed, and then published, I think that we are a bit aggressive to consider that this is doable. But anyways, that's what they are still conveying to us, that the regulation should be ready this year, and then next year the license is available in the market fully plugged in. So that's my appraisal. The market is basically warming up for the unfolding of the licenses. So that's where it's going. And this is very consistent with what I think we all share, that the idea that this market is just starting to demonstrate its potential at the end of the day. This is going to be a large market for sports betting down the line. So that's pretty much my initial thoughts. I hope I had answered your question, Luisa.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, it's going to be lots of speculations about what this legislation is going to be enacted. And meanwhile, as Luis Felipe has already told us, you have these movements with the states, and you have the virtual, the online sports betting, and you have the traditional sports betting. So a number of questions and urbanization that will have to be faced by Brazil. But yes, you're in the way. Right now, with going to our with Dima, so very helpful and very happy to have your insights from abroad. So Dima, BTO Bet has repeatedly stated there's no single formula that can be replicated in different markets. And your approach has been reap benefits with BTO Bet now working closely with William Hill and Betfair in Latin America. But in what ways does Brazil differ to other regional markets? And what is your approach as a sports platform provider on all those movements that we have been seeing over the last months, years here?
Thank you, Luisa, and huge thanks to CGS for organizing this interesting discussion. And the invitation extended. I think we can look at Brazil like we look at any market from a few angles. We can approach it from a content perspective. We should approach it from a market maturity in terms of product and types of betting. There's obviously the basics like language and payments. So I think there's quite a few angles that will make Brazil unique. I do believe that Brazil is one of those markets, and we're seeing it across other unique markets across the world. Brazil is definitely standing out. That one single approach, if you're coming from a large European operation, is not going to work for you in Brazil. You really have to adjust and adapt to the local mindset, to the local flavor, if you want to say it, not only on the marketing level, but probably on the product level as well. And it's definitely a market that we'll need to learn, at least in a bit of it. As you mentioned, I'm the only member joining from abroad. But with my familiarity of the Brazilian flavor, there should be some adaptations. If we start from the content, which is probably the basic for any sportsbook provider, yes, of course, football is up there. I mean, everybody knows football is probably number one in Brazil. But if you look through the local kind of media and the existing sportsbook out there, you see that basketball has a lot of traction, which some people may find surprising. Then there's volleyball, also with beach volleyball having a strong tradition in the country. So these are usually, these are not sports you would usually meet in other traditional markets and mature markets, such as Western Europe, but they definitely have the presence in Brazil. If you add into that futsal, if you add into that Formula One, which is probably the most attended race in the whole series, if you add into that the tremendous growth we're seeing in UFC for Brazil as a country and Brazilian fighters in that organization. Last but not least, we shouldn't ignore esports, which Brazil is definitely one of the leading countries on a global scale. So I think there's quite, all of these together, they shape a very distinct taste in terms of market preference, in terms of the content. So we as a sportsbook provider, we see that we must provide our operators with this wide variety and access to all of these sports. Then one question, okay, now you have the content, how do you propagate it? How do you propose that to the client? So do you just put it up there on a nice banner on top of your homepage, or do you serve it intelligently based on players' preference, based on the geographical location, based on their favorite team, which is third-party info you can obtain? So I think it's important to pay attention also to the way you propose your content, which is definitely something we've been paying a lot of attention. Moving on, it will be very interesting to see what type of betting will be allowed. So, for example, is live betting going to be allowed? Is exchange betting going to be allowed? I mean, all the different types of betting we're seeing across the globe, we're not really sure yet what's going to take place in Brazil, what is going to be the framework. And that will hugely affect not only the content offering, but also the type of bets, right? Are we going to see a lot of accumulators? Are we going to see parlay betting? Are we going to see system bets? Maybe we're going to see some Asian handicap flavor. So, for us from the outside, it's a bit early to say, but we're confident we need to be able to offer all those types for the market as it matures. So it's safe to say that in the beginning, we'll probably see the more traditional three-way betting, right? So you're going to see some 1x2 for most punters. But I'm sure that as the market will regulate and evolve, it will mature itself into more advanced and more, I would say, expanded type of sports betting for the players. Last but not least, and I think I'm going to wrap up with this, any platform provider, sports or not sports, going to have to take care of language and payments. This is a country where, as far as we know, the usual credit card systema will not really work. About 1/3 of the population have bad credit, and they don't have access to credit cards, and even if they will, they won't be able to use them. So you need to make sure you cater to the local type and tradition. I mean, cash is still king, but you do have boleto bancário and a few of the others. So I think that any operator, sportsbook or not, will have to make sure that he's ready for that in terms of the technical side, but also in terms of the operational execution, because some of those are quite unique in terms of payment methods, and it all starts and ends with punters depositing and withdrawing their winnings.
Thank you, Dima. Yes, it's a challenge to know exactly how this regulation is going to unfold in practice. But I think some interesting points is actually the very basic legislation that allowed sports betting. It has the goal of enhancing competition, of actually bringing this kind of innovation into practice. So, and when Brazilians may have to see as well that maybe all details will have to be built along the way. But if you have this clear goal, which is actually bringing sustainability to the sector, we just going to be at least halfway there. So thank you all for this very thoughtful insights in this first round. Right now, the idea is for us to be able to, have a more fluid conversation. So we can just, I'm going to just get one specific question in terms of regulation to Luis Felipe Maia, and then we can have more thoughtful and share our thoughts about the perspectives in this 5 years, let's say 5 years time. So, Luis Felipe Maia, from the legal area, what are the best practice to invite investors to participate in this large market of Brazil?
Well, first of all, we need to have regulation in place, and regulation must be clear enough for the investors to know what they're dealing with. I think our challenge, knowing the Brazilian culture, is try not to reinvent the wheel. Try not to create something that is way too Brazilian and that may not make sense in terms of international practices or in terms of product. We also have to keep in mind the limitations that the regulator will have based on the law that was approved by the Congress. As Dima said, there are several types of betting products like betting exchange and so on. But the Brazilian law was limited to fixed odds sports betting. And this is a limitation based set forth by law. And if they want to get more products or to include other types of betting, not only on sports events, but on elections or on the Oscar and so on, in this specific lottery, they will have to amend the law. And we saw how hard it is to amend the law. It took them a while to fix the taxation issue that was originally approved in 2018. And just recently, they were able to do that. And even though they did it for the operator, the taxation on winnings is still there. We still have to deal with 30% exclusive withholding tax on winnings, which is something that they will have to deal with. So answering your question, I think we have a lot to do as a country, and the regulator has a lot to do to create a regulatory framework that makes sense for the operators to come.
Yeah, I think it's already linked to something that Hugo has told in his first thought that about trust in the market, right? So if you have this idea of clarity, I remember the first time I talked to Luis Felipe, he told me, there's no legislation without regulation. So if one thing is legalization and its success, all the success depends on regulation, it's important that all the actors involved have a voice as well to create this environment that has sustainability as well. So now just to have your taking into account everything that have been already, Andrew, Hugo, Dilma, how do you see, this 5 years time ahead? I know it's been like a long time. He's been talking about this. Minds are changing. A few years ago as well, we're quite close to have this all numbers of bills. Have the public hearings being held in both houses of the National Congress. But it seems right now that the path is slightly different. As you all talked about, we do have legislation in place. We don't know exactly when regulation is going to be enacted, but at least you have this time. It was supposed to be enacted within 2 years. Now can be with additional 2 years. So it seems, and the states are already moving. Are they already, trying to build their framework that, for external, has to be compatible to that the union will be enacting. So it seems that right now, within 5 years period, we have really realistic steps that the scenario is going to be changed. So in what kind do you think it's going to be changed? Do you think it's going to be more focused on this sports betting? Are you confident that you can have more opportunities and especially take into account all this virtual, virtual reality, the idea that the gaming and gambling are many times transferred into this online modalities. So how do you see this in Brazil?
Can I go first?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I think that once we get the first in the line concluded in terms of regulatory efforts and the market starts developing, the other fronts will naturally make progress as well. So my perspective, in 5 years, we're going to have not only sports betting, but also online casino and probably offline gaming also legalized and then regulated. That's my perspective. I think one thing will bring the other, and the benefits will be tangible, and that's going to make a big difference in society and discussions in Congress level. So my perspective, the market in 5 years will be really hot, still growing in several different fronts, from resort casinos to iGaming, passing through the states. I think there will be a lot going on in Brazil, and Brazil is going to be one of the hottest markets in the world in 5 years' time. That's my perspective.
I think that I agree 100% with André. Once we have sports betting regulated, will be really easier to make people understand that we have to legalize and regulate the other verticals, online casino and land-based operations also. We as a company, we are looking into right now with the pandemic. We are looking on the online market for a while, preparing ourselves for Brazilian market. Well, we are preparing ourselves for the last 15 years, but anyway, it's part of the business, and I think from a provider perspective, that people in Brazil are seeing the sports betting every day on their television. As Felipe said, 85% of the first league is already sponsored by a sports betting company. So for their mind, I think that's something that they take easier, because before they never saw it in that way. And also another perspective is that the world is smaller today. So they're traveling a lot. So they saw other markets. They can go to Chile, they can go to Argentina, they can go to Uruguay, they can go to Peru, they can go to US or Portugal. They see casinos, they see online advertisement, they see everyday things, and they understand that it's another business as a supermarket. Okay, so I 100% agree with André. We in 5 years, Brazil is going to be, it's already the hottest one, and in 5 years we're still developing. And I had this conversation with Felipe a while ago, and I think that Brazilian market, it's already something real. I mean, if you go to any corner, you can see something illegal, unfortunately. And I think that should exist, or should somehow some political front or anything just say, we're gonna have to legalize this, because we're just losing money and leaving this business in the bad hands. So anyway, I think that Brazil is, in 5 years, I'm pretty sure that the biggest one, or the most one that will be increased in the next 5 years.
I guess I'm going to go last again. But good, standing on the shoulder of giants here. First of all, I couldn't agree more with Andrea and Hugo here. I mean, there's not a lot to add. I also believe that the market is definitely not only a growing market, but the growth will be expedited when there is a clear guideline of do's and don'ts. So once the legislation is formulated in the sense that everybody knows what to do and the rules of the game, so to speak, I think that will give a boost. I hope it will give a boost to the market trend. Hopefully additional verticals as well. I do want to perhaps offer an outsider perspective. I think that one of the things that are expediting Brazil legislation, or hopefully will be expediting going forward, is also what Hugo mentioned, the globalization. And basically, you can wake up in the morning, look around you, and Argentina is formulating something, Colombia is already there, and then you have more and more markets that are literally bordering with Brazil, or very accessible, like Portuguese, for example, and everybody knows it. So I think that there's that fear of missing out in terms of the Brazilian audience and the Brazilian decision makers, where they don't want to be late to this party, so to speak. So that will have an effect, I believe. It will also be very interesting to see how the Brazilian regulator will be, how he will be, what type of regulator he will be. Will he be an aggressive one? Will he be able to educate the markets and the players what is safe gambling, in the sense that encouraging white operators versus the black market operators, so encouraging the players to go to the right place and be effective against the operators that are doing wrong. And we see the different regulators, not only in Europe but also globally. Some of them are taking a very aggressive stand, and they're very active. Sometimes maybe too active if you look at the Northern Europe. So sometimes they're too active in terms of encouraging players to play at the regulated websites. And at the same time, you see some others that are a bit more lenient. I don't want to say anything else, and they're not really controlling the market. So I think that will have an effect on the phase and the tempo of how the Brazilian market will evolve. So not only the product side, but also how the regulator will play its part. But bottom line, 5 years from now, my guess, not only it's the biggest market in Latin America, but hopefully one of the leading global markets. And I do believe that the fact that United States is moving at such a high pace in the last few years, right? I mean, it's been the sleeping giant for so many years, and then suddenly everything's moving in light speed. I think that the Brazilians are looking at it from the side, and we can do the same. Why miss out? So I think it's a big factor, and as that moves ahead so fast, and operators are kind of entering the US, I think we'll see a similar scenario in Brazil, where more and more global players, I mean, some of them already have a footprint and we all know who they are, but I'm saying additional ones will get into the market. Definitely a lucrative market to look forward to.
Thank you, Dima. Luis Felipe, I don't know if you want to have a word on that as well.
Well, I couldn't say it any better. I think we have the view from people in the market, Dima, Hugo, and Andre. And I think expectations are very high because of the size of the market. That's why I keep on saying this, and this is going to be my mantra for the next 12 months. I think it is. We cannot try to reinvent the wheel. We cannot create what we call in Brazil a jabuticaba. Jabuticaba is a small fruit that is native from Brazil, and we cannot create another power outlet like we have in Brazil with 3 pins like this that exists only in Brazil, and whenever you need to travel abroad, you need to take an adapter. We have to be conscious that it's a world industry, international operators, and that we don't have any excuse to do it wrong. I said it many times in my presentations. We are arriving very late at the party. We don't have any excuse to be dressed wrong. Everybody is telling us how the party is, how it works, and what is the dress code. If we arrive late with the wrong outfit, with the wrong regulation, it's completely our fault.
Yes. We are dressed up for the party, right? So let's wait to see what's coming next. So I don't know if any of you would like to say a few words. If not, I think we're reaching the end of this panel. So thank you, CGS. Thank you all the panelists thank you, CGS, for hosting this event, and for the panelists for their very valuable insights. Actually, we can see we have a proverb here that they say that Brazil is not for beginners, right? So that's the reasons we are here with all those experts on the field. So as Dima told us, it seems to be the time that like this giant has the chance to wake up from this sleeping time, sleeping beauty mode, and go straight to our reality. So we'll be very happy to see how the next episodes unfold, and we rely, and let's see if hopefully all these projections come through within this 5 years time. So and it's interesting to know that legislation, when you talk about clarity, that's good for the operators, that's good for the player, that's good for the operators and for the regulator as well. That's what brings sustainability that we're trying to achieve. So let's hope that the virtues, not the vicious sides of regulation or flourishing the market comes next. So thank you all, and hope to see you soon discussing different aspects of regulation itself, of the market itself, and how to enhance it. So thank you all, and bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.